parents a right to notice and to opt out to a child out of sex and HIV prevention education. However, our gender diversity lessons do not fall into this category. Instead, these lessons are part of our elementary character counseling program and only discuss gender identity, not sexuality. Schools are not permitted to allow parents to opt their children out of this type of generally provided instruction, and in particular, anti-bullying, harassment, and discrimination programming aimed at making our schools safe and welcoming environments for all.
Thank you.
Good evening, board and superintendent. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight. I want to read out a definition of sanctuary school districts for parental rights, and then I'm going to make a comment about it. The term sanctuary school district for parental rights refers to municipal jurisdictions in the United States of America that limit their cooperation with the state government's effort to impose laws that usurp the authority of parents in their children's lives, or to impose an ideology that is contrary to a family's core values through state-mandated educational policies. Leaders of sanctuary school districts say they want to reduce governmental control over families and empower parents and legal guardians to exercise their fundamental rights endowed to them by their Creator to determine who gets to speak into their children's lives and what that content will be. These heroic leaders enact district-wide policies ensuring parental rights, including notification to the parent or guardian of a child who leaves school campus for any medical reason, including the seeking of an abortion, trans therapy, or any other medical service. They also reject the enforcement of AB 329, SB 48, or any other law requiring the teaching, approval, or encouragement of any type of sexual behavior. That definition being stated, what I want you all to know, and you guys are already aware, I want everybody else here to know that this has been placed on the agenda for next month, that you guys will discuss the idea of sanctuary school district for parental rights. The state has increasingly tried to strip us, parents and guardians, of our rights over our children, including letting them leave campus for an abortion. So the question is going to be this for all of you. What is your legacy going to be as school board members? Will you be champions for parental rights, or are you going to be suckers for the state? I hope you all have backbone. I hope you all stand for all the parents that are here tonight, and you make a decision to say, I don't care what the state says, I'm going to side with the parents. You guys have a decision to make 1 month from today. I hope you think long and hard every single night over this next month. I know that the president of the board and the vice president of the board are up for re-election. I guarantee you, if you don't stand for parental rights, all the parents that want parental rights will find somebody to replace you come 2020. Guaranteed. Thank you.
Hi, Leslie. We always say hi to each other. Wanted to talk about one thing that I'm particularly concerned about that I think is cited in Education Code 46010.1. Excusing children may or must excuse children. It seems like it may excuse children from class for medical procedures. I want to know if there's any parameters under which you would not excuse a child. Instance of, say, a rape. I understand that it would be somewhat acceptable for alternate therapies to maybe enhance a particular lifestyle choice or decision. But let's say a child wanted to voluntarily have a leg amputated that was working perfectly. Would you feel the need to let the parents know and help the child along, or would you excuse the child and allow them to go for the procedure? In the case of a rape, would there be any thought given there to notifying the parents before they went to Planned Parenthood or something else? I just feel the wording of it is somewhat vague, and I'd like some clarity and some, I guess, opinion, thought from the board tonight if I get it. Does that seem reasonable, unreasonable?
You know, it's not an agenda item, and you're invited to talk and ask and just make a statement,
right.
but you can engage the board in a conversation regarding answering questions or things that are not on the agenda.
Fair enough.
What I invite you to do is to contact my staff or myself, and we can answer your question.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Speak on this item.
Hi, I'm Amanda Beal, a sophomore at Oak Park High School, and I'm going to take you back to 4th grade. I was a very hygienic 4th grader. I was embarrassed by the fact that I carried around a pack of wipes to the restroom with me. One day as I entered the restroom with a pack of wipes in my pocket, I was followed by one of my classmates. I closed the stall to ensure my privacy, but was surprised to see that my classmate was peeking his head over the stall. When I asked why he was invading my personal space like that, he replied that he thought I was carrying a bomb. Being stereotyped by my peers was one of the most demeaning things that has ever happened to me. However, I have been picked on for numerous reasons over the past few years. While I have been mistreated for being a part of the LGBTQ+ community, as well as displaying feminine tendencies in my behavior, the prime causes of my bullying have been my race and religion. Yet I was not the only one who had to deal with the same issue. The worst part is, my younger sister is still dealing with similar issues in her elementary school today. So now I'm asking you to please implement other topics such as race, religion, appearance, etc. into this curriculum. Teach students to practice kindness and respect towards all people, not just about the gender spectrum. As a student and as sophomore class president, I and many others call for change. This change needs to happen now, and the power to help students like my sister is in your hands. Thank you.
So, I don't have a prepared speech, but specifically, to Doug's point, yes, there should be instructions to the children to behave and be nice and polite to everyone. But to be adding in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're expanding the number, and as you can tell by the number of parents here who are not comfortable with what you're forcing on them and taking away from them as parents as control for their kids, it's not unreasonable to expect that small children up to the age of 5, 5th grade, would also be ill-prepared for such delivery of information. Keeping it simple, KISS, just talking about let's be kind to people, let's be appropriate in our engagement in other people, would be adequate at this age range. And to try and usurp and steal our rights as parents by hiding your agenda in anti-bullying so that we can't opt out shows a great deal about all of your characters.
There can be no opting out of this program as it is for all students. Some argue that a small group of people is asking for special status, that some are more equal than others. Sorry, but I'm an English teacher and can't resist a literary reference. But all that is happening through the inclusion of this program is that we are providing words and understanding to students who express an aspect of who some of them are. We are offering yet another marginalized group presence and a voice, and that is precisely what we are in the business of doing. As a teacher, I've seen the incredible pain, the loneliness, the devastating rejection that kids who are trans or gender non-conforming can experience at the hands of their peers and adults alike. From my experience working with the students at OPU and from listening to their stories, our schools, like much of our larger society, are not yet a safe and welcome place for them. In the past, we have not done enough to teach all the children in our charge what they need to understand to do their part in making it so. I've taught several transgender students and seen them blossom when they are finally in a place and among people who give them the safety and the support to be themselves. That's it, just to be themselves without fear of ridicule, bullying, anger, and rejection. We must give them the words to tell their stories and understand themselves. One young man told me, I had 6 years of being uncomfortable and unhappy. This was solved by hearing 2 words, your friends. There are too many of these students and their families who are not here tonight. They don't want to be pointed out, a target for the fear and anger that some will take out on them. What would have made my daughter's experience and all students' experience better? How about a program to let them know that they are okay for liking what they like and looking how they look? are, being told that they belong, being among classmates who have an understanding to accept them as they are, because they have been taught how to do that too. Having adults teach our students the words, the vocabulary that they need to understand themselves and others. Though frankly, as a teacher, I always advocate for better vocabulary. Sarah and her peers would have had a better, richer, more enlightened experience from learning the ideas and the words to express their differences as positives and see each person for their unique expression of who they are in all their roles: gender, scholastic, sports, family, community, everything. So no opting out. We must all be in this together. Thank you.
The next speaker on this topic is Renee Montes. I just don't appreciate the attitude of the district, especially of Holly Baxter and Tony Knight, and the need for the children to accept the gender spectrum. The job of educators, counselors, and social workers are to educate and to assist students in creating a healthy learning environment. A healthy learning environment is stripped away from those who choose to choose their gender in line with their born sex. They take it upon themselves to present gender spectrum and expect students to accept it. Climate change, sex ed, other things are taught in a non-biased form, but I feel that gender spectrum, it seems biased, and I think it's the job of the family to teach love and acceptance, and I think it starts with self-acceptance. Once you love yourself and accept the good and the bad, then that love for yourself overflows to love for others. Bullies, they don't like themselves, and they hurt others to make themselves feel better about themselves, and it needs to be taught to love themselves regardless of if they're a girl, they wear a dress, or they're a girl, they wear pants and play sports. They should love themselves regardless, and that begins in the home, and it can also be supported at school to love themselves. And I appreciate the character traits that are taught each month, but I suggested to start with acceptance first, and to start with self-acceptance and just loving yourself for who you are. Because when you love yourself for who you are, you don't seek for others' approval. Whether people are gonna say good and bad things to you throughout your life, and if you have that firm foundation of love and respect for yourself, it doesn't matter what other people think of you. You're still gonna stand firm and have a good self-esteem, because it began with self-acceptance and self-love. And then also my question is, how are you, this need to, for the students to accept the gender spectrum, how are you going to measure this acceptance by the students? So I think it just needs to be, it's been pushed out too fast, and I think it needs to be put on hold, and it belongs to be taught in the home, and I support any effort for anti-bullying and to accepting all people.
Thank you to the board for your dedication and service, and for embracing open dialogue on the subject. When considering the issue of opt-out for any lesson that's taught in our schools, I first looked to the reason why almost all lessons don't include an opt-out, including the gender diversity lessons. And the simplest reason is that California law does not require it. Our state legislature has entrusted our teachers and administrators with providing our students with a safe learning environment for all, and has given them the leeway to determine what is appropriate to achieve this goal. If the legislature thought it was necessary to include an opt-out provision, it could and would under the state law. This is demonstrated by the opt-out requirement from the mandated sex education curriculum, for which the legislature did include an opt-out provision. So that begs the question, why does our legislator not take this position? Opt-out gives parents an uncontrolled veto to overrule our expert faculty and administrators' best judgment. It would create an extremely slippery slope that would be ripe for abuse. If the gender diversity lessons include an opt-out provision, that opens the door and sets a dangerous precedent. What lessons would be next? Maybe lessons on evolution. How about that Common Core math? I know I've banged my head against the wall enough times trying to figure out how to teach my kids the new way of doing things that I might consider opting out. Clearly, that wouldn't be in the best interest of our students. I urge the board to take into consideration the future ramifications that adding an opt-out provision can and will cause.
To use one of your phrases, I'm one of those marginalized groups. I'm a Mexican-American first generation. I'm a small business owner, and I also am a veteran of the Marine Corps. I don't need a handout. I don't need you to tell my kids what is good for them. That's what I'm here for. If we're gonna start using intersectional politics and dividing people into individual groups, I wanna know when I get my lesson plan, K through 5. When are you gonna talk to all the white people about the Bracero Act, about the Greaser Act, and about all the marginalized Mexicans that even now are being said, go back to where you came from, or being called wetbacks or beaners? Or when I get pulled over, no offense, I still am under the impression that I'm gonna go to jail because I'm not white. When do I get that class? Please speak up, tell me. When are you gonna teach about the thousands of years of my culture or our people or how this used to be Mexico? When does that class come up? I don't want the class. You know why? I don't need the class. I don't need to be divided from everybody else. Everybody can get along if you stop dividing people the way you are. I got a gay sister, I got black cousins, as I said before, and you know what? That's your tia, those are your cousins, or those are your primos. That's not the gay aunt or the black cousin. That's how you divide people, and that's how you have a community divided, because of your petty actions and trying to hide this and put it underneath and marginalizing everybody else to have one preferred group that you're going to enforce this on, and you're going to just put them in this little bubble because you guys are also in a little bubble. You're not listening to parents. Like having cops here at a meeting. As a person of color, you know what that means to me? When I roll up and I see a cop car, that doesn't mean, hey, come on in, you're welcome. That means maybe I should go home. I don't want to get arrested if I say the wrong thing. Especially when you start the meeting with saying it's a misdemeanor, you're going to get arrested for speaking out of turn.
Amen.
Is this the Jim Crow laws again? We can't talk now? Look at yourselves. You're a bunch of white elitists telling everybody else of color, because it's a big community of Indians that won't speak out because they're afraid they'll get deported.
That's true. Yep.
I haven't seen one email in Spanish or in Hindi or in Mandarin. Everything's in English. Why is that? Why do you shut people out? As a person of color, I'm suspect whenever someone tells me, don't ask questions, accept it. Because you know why? It doesn't go good for us. It hasn't gone good for us. And right now, it's not going good for us. So tell me why. And if you're going to take one protected class, I want my lessons also. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Like some of us parents, we attended, like some of the parents here, I was one that attended the Parent Info Night last week. And like many of them, I was more confused and frustrated when I left the meeting than when I went in. The presentation was riddled with single-minded logic to justify the curriculum, and I just cited a few things here. After essentially, as Carlos mentioned, reading us a riot act referencing the law enforcement and how it equates to misdemeanors, we were told that the media was not allowed because it was meant to be a community meeting. Well, community usually implies an interactive dynamic, not one that reads screen questions and provides answers with no rebuttal and no further discussion. After a detailed presentation about gender biology, gender identity, and sexuality, it was stressed repeatedly that counselors would not teach our K through 5 kids about sexuality. Yet the bullying and suicide statistics they provided pertain to LGBTQ individuals, not just the T part. They say they will not be asking the children, and I just got this in an email to my reply. I just got a reply to an email I sent in that night. The children will not be asked to where they will be on the gender spectrum. Yet a counselor stated there are boys and there are girls, and there's lots of good stuff in between. So how can a young child hear this and not have any questions? Introducing this idea is like throwing a proverbial bomb into a classroom and then asking the teachers to clean up the mess. On one hand, it was stressed how the alarming statistics raised the red flag needed to impose the curriculum immediately. Yet on the other hand, they kept saying it's only a 30 to 45 minute lesson once a year. It's only a 30 to 45 minute lesson once a year. So which is it? Is it an effective tool meant to stop bullying? Or is it something so entirely essential that you are willing to cause community turmoil over? Or is it just a 30 to 45 minute lesson? There are so many more examples of this one-sided thinking, but for time constraints, I'll leave you with this. Last week, we were also reminded that kids are resilient, and essentially they have more critical thinking skills than we give them credit for. That's why exposing to them this at a young age would prevent more of these statistics. And that part might be true. They may be more resilient and they may have more critical thinking skills. But you know why? It's because we are the parents. And as much as we will teach them that bullying is wrong, by the turnout here, we will also teach them not to be bullied themselves. Let the kids be kids. Give us an opt-out.
Sponsoring has a biased content and conflict with a lot of different religious and belief systems. It's not about offending a few families, which you stated at the last meeting. This is so much more. Not allowing for an opt-out for parents with conflicting religious and cultural beliefs regarding the curriculum that has a discriminatory bias is against the law. And I want that noted here in public that this is a violation of Ed Cook's 51500 and 51501. And what those laws state is that a teacher shall not give instruction and a school district shall not sponsor any activity that promotes a discriminatory bias on the basis of race or ethnicity, gender, religion, disability, nationality, or sexual orientation because of a characteristic listed in section 220. And we've stated that many times. Teaching this exploration of the gender spectrum conflicts with many belief systems, and this violation doesn't stop with just one lesson. I've looked into your website, and I've seen it there under Gender Diversity Resources and Oak Park Connect. The Oak Park Connect website, there's articles in there that show bias. For example, quote, summed up, the myth goes like this. Every person is either male or female, and the distinction is based on the person's anatomy, end quote. This quote describes my belief that gender is binary and that gender and sex are the same thing is a myth. That is bias, that's discriminatory. Posing this on the district website promotes discrimination and is a biased curriculum. We all have a right to our own belief systems, and we have a right to have those belief systems respected. By forcing my daughter, who's 8 years old, to attend these gender diversity lessons that are discriminatory and violate the law is not going to be okay with me ever. I'm a parent, I'm Mama Bear, I decide what I'm going to teach my children and what is allowed. I'm asking the school district, though, to provide the opt-out. You provide the opt-out, you give us more choices, and that takes the bias and the discrimination, it puts it aside because we have options. When you force the students to listen to things, that's different. What I'm finding is that my daughter is she's 8 years old, she's gonna go to a classroom and with a teacher and a counselor who have influence over her in a way that I don't have influence. I'm her parent, but if she hears a counselor with influence speak to her in a place of influence, that is a big deal. Thank you.
Ellen.
Alan?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm just having some things here. like the difference between gender and sex. I understood that they're basically the same type of thing. You're either man or a woman, you're born a man or a woman. Now, there are some other issues that come up, psychological issues, I understand. But as far as biological, scientific fact, there are two basic sexes. Unless there's some new evidence that's come up that I don't know. We've all been, I think, bullied, shunned, ostracized, put down for whatever reason. When I was a kid, I played violin and everybody made fun of me. They thought it was a sissy instrument. So you know what I did? I joined the football team and I became quarterback of the football team. I picked up a guitar and I joined a rock and roll band and nobody laughed anymore. I made it through okay. I was always taught that if you're afraid of being rubbed the wrong way, you never get polished. I mean, sometimes things happen in life and we use them as opportunities to teach. Holly Baxter, remember when we had the issue last year with my daughter? I've got a daughter, 8 years old now, and it was a bullying issue. Had nothing to do with gender. I don't really understand why gender is the main topic, and we're all being now focused on this gender issue where I'm getting all these different types of definitions coming up, and I'm going, what? I don't know if you guys understand them, but I'm having a hard time, and I'm an adult. And we're dealing with kids, kindergarten through 5, and I don't understand. Some of the books, I looked at the duck bunny thing, and I'm going, what? It doesn't happen. And the crayon, it's a blue crayon that thinks it's red, or it's red that's blue. I mean, there's a reason that we're teaching education, and that's to give people the facts so they can make the right decisions in life and live a healthy life. And I think concepts like not bullying are huge. I think we'll all agree with that. But I've got another book here, it's called Unique Monique. And it's a nice, it's well put together, and the book really ends with the girl trying to be, she's wearing the same stuff all the time with everybody else in school because they have school uniforms. Well, in the end, she wants to be different. So she wears a hat and then she wears glasses. This type of book you can relate to, you can understand, but a duck bunny or a just don't get it. My daughter said the other morning, she said, Daddy, Mommy, I'm afraid. I don't want to be a boy. I'm happy being a girl. Are they going to make me a boy? That just came up. I mean, we got some fear going on with this little girl. These kids are vulnerable. They need to be guided. They need to be directed. They need to be nurtured. And I understand where there's some difficulties with them identifying with who they are and where they're going. And we should be there to teach them the right way. So we give them the benefit.
Whether the character counts lessons related to gender diversity for their children violates their parental rights, especially with regard to sacredly held religious views. I believe every member of this board feels unified in our respect for the families who make up our district. District leadership has respectfully and timely responded to any parent or community member who had a question or expressed concern about this topic and took their valuable feedback into consideration in making some changes to the lessons. Along those same lines, a member of our community asked that we place this item on our agenda for tonight, and we immediately honored that request. In addition, providing parents advance notice of the dates and times of the lessons that will occur in their child's classroom, the district has made sincere efforts to ensure that a safe and non-discriminatory school environment for all students and demonstrate respect for parents' rights. Because the item is on our agenda, the board may ordinarily engage and discuss this matter with the public and each other. But in this particular instance, board members are limited in what they can say on this topic, given that due to threats of litigation, this has been discussed with and a decision was reached based on the advice of legal counsel. And those conversations are protected by the attorney-client privilege.
Cowards.